I have mixed feelings about autumn. Let's start with some of the positives. The bug season is over, and you can sit outside without getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, midges and horseflies. You don't have to worry about forest fires when you enjoy your campfire. The autumn colours are magnificent, and then there's the air that somehow feels so fresh in autumn. On the other hand, there's no way to hide from the fact that the bikepacking season is drawing to an end, at least on bare roads not covered in snow and ice. Winter bikepacking sure has its merits, and I'm sure no stranger to take advantage of the possibilities I have where I live. But to be honest, as much as I love sleeping under the stars in winter, I do prefer bikepacking in summer. In other words, it was with both a sense of joy and a sense of sadness that I rode into my local backwoods with Sverre. It was great to be out with a good friend again, but I also knew that winter could be knocking on the door already a few weeks from now. Our planned route might seem a bit odd. The place we rode towards is well known for its large areas of old-growth forest, that is, by Norwegian standards. Old-growth forest, that's a good thing. The only problem was that since the whole forest now is protected as a forest reserve, which in itself surely is a good thing, we weren't allowed to cycle there. I had planned our first campsite to be at the southern border of the forest reserve, and sure enough, to the north, you could catch a glimpse of the old-growth forest. Ironically, the only reasonably flat spot we could find was on a recent clear cut. At least it gave us a good view towards the stars when our campfire finally died down. I guess it's always good to be out, clear cut or not. The next morning, I pottered down to the nearby creek again, wondering what lay deeper inside the reserve to the north. I watched the dead trees drowned by an old beaver dam that once must have been there, listened to the creek, saw the delicate ferns gently wave in the wind. It felt good. I told myself I should do this more often, to slow down, take my time, be in the moment and all that. So I did just that, slowed down, took my time, stayed in the moment. And I ended up doing it for so long that I eventually lost track of time. When I finally surfaced from my little session of forest bathing and returned to camp, Sverre had already made breakfast, wondering where on earth I'd gone to. The day's bicycle leg hadn't even moved out of the clear cut before it came to a halt. A thick stick caught the rear derailleur on Sverre's bike and ripped it right off. So there we were, after a whopping 10 meters of travelling, wondering what to do. But not for long. Surly to the rescue. By some lucky coincidence, I had mounted 2 chain tensioners on the sliding dropouts on my Surly Pugsley fat bike. I don't know how many times Sverre had told me I only needed one, but for some reason, I had kept both on my bike. I am by no means religious or superstitious, quite the contrary, but even I could see how strange a coincidence this was. Maybe there is a cycling god after all. Sverre decided which sprocket was the best compromise, shortened his chain, installed the chain tensioner, and then we were ready to set off. I know he'd rather have kept that derailleur intact on his bike, but I also knew that part of him was triggered by the thought of having to ride single speed the rest of the trip. Sverre is always up for a challenge. After a couple of hours riding gravel, we found our way to a trail taking us up on a hilltop just outside the forest reserve, and for a short moment we cycled through remnants of old-growth forest that so far had been spared from being clear-cut. In the distance we could see the hills deep into the heart of the forest reserve we were circumnavigating. The low evening light made the autumn colours glow even more. This had been in my backyard for more than 17 years, but I'd never been here before. I couldn't help feeling lucky to still have undiscovered places like this in my backwoods. And I knew there was even more waiting. A pretty steep descent took us down to a quiet forest lake. After a section of gravel, we rolled our wheels onto another section of trail, flowing gently through the woods. If last night's campsite on the clear cut wasn't the most epic, our new campsite was sure making up for it. Man, I've always envied those Americans their fantastic canyon lands in the south. The contrast between the desolate, dry desert rock and the occasional little creek running through like an elongated oasis. Well, this sure wasn't a desert, and it wasn't a huge wilderness area, but at least there somehow was this contrast between the naked rock face and a little creek that I find so appealing. Even better, it was my backyard. I'm also envious of their mountain lions there on the other side of the Atlantic, but we actually still have a few hundred big cats roaming the forests of Norway, even though the authorities work hard to keep the lynx population at the bare minimum. I've seen lynx tracks in the snow on a number of occasions, but I've yet to see this elusive, beautiful big cat in the flesh. I guess it's a big paradox of our time. We are so busy going around searching high and low for new experiences and adventure in faraway places that many of us forget to look in our very own backyard. Chances are most people not living in your corner of the world will find your local backwoods exotic. How well do you really know your own backyard? If you look at the map, how many white spots have you yet to discover? How many of the lakes or rivers have you been swimming in, paddled on or fished in? How many of the hilltops have you climbed? How many of the species living there have you actually seen? How close to your home have you had an overnighter and still felt that you were on an adventure? I guess I'm more out and about in my commune where I live than most people. Still, there are so many places I have yet to see, to discover, to bond with, here, close to where I live. So many that I would have a hard time experiencing them all in a lifetime. I slept well that night, falling asleep to the gentle trickle of water in the nearby creek. As I slowly woke up, I could hear Sverre already preparing his breakfast. Our trip was drawing to a close. Sverre was heading east, I was going north. He had about 60 kilometers to ride his now single-speed Surly Krampus home and was aiming for an early start, just in case. I myself had only half of that back home and took my time to get as much out of the morning in the woods as I possibly could. I gathered some sticks to get my wood burner going as Sverre did his last packing and prepared to leave. We said our goodbyes, thanking each other for yet another great trip, hoping to ride together again soon. And then I was alone. It felt strange suddenly having all this time on my hands, not having to rush. For someone who always seemed to be on the move, always eager to see what's over the next hill or around the next turn of the trail, for me, this was just what I needed. Now I only had to appreciate the gift I was suddenly granted. Well, I didn't need to worry about the moment slipping out of my hands because of my inherent restlessness. Maybe I'd learned something at the old beaver dam the day before. In any case, the wood burner already had me. The little humble steel cylinder seemed to be filled with a magic calm, a container of fairy dust just waiting to be sprinkled upon you as soon as you get the flames going. The sound of the fire, the smell of the burning wood. So simple a joy, yet so powerful. I let it do its magic for a while. I ate my porridge, drank my coffee, and slowly started to take down the tarp and pack my gear. Then, it was only one thing left to say. Goodbye for now.